Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Burnout Help, Stress and Burnout First Aid. I hope you're well. Today's topic is a big one. Can we change? Now, that is indeed a big question, and a question that I've been asking myself for many years now, that I've been pondering, and it has actually influenced a lot of the work that I've done and on myself, but also my career and the direction that I've taken. And this question has been fascinating me for a very long time. Can we as human beings change, or are we fixed in a way, stuck in the same patterns, in the same ways of behaving and of thinking? This question is very relevant when it comes to stress and burnout, because as I've explained in many other videos and on my various social media posts, that when clients come to see me because of a burnout, there's usually a lot behind that. It's not just that they have a bad boss or they're not happy in their job with this particular job. In some cases, simply changing this external trigger is enough to make them feel better. But in most cases, there's a lot more behind this crisis. And what I mean by a lot more, I mean a very sense of identity. Who am I? What do I really want to be? Why am I always so angry? Why am I always so fearful? Where does it come from? And of course, the question then becomes, can we do anything about that? Can we work on all these issues, and can we change some of these issues? And what does it mean to change? I've worked for a very long time in the corporate world, and I remember already I was dealing with these issues in some capacity, and I will speak to people, and especially the older generation. It was very difficult for them to understand or to accept or to believe that it is possible to change. We are who we are. I have these habits, I have this way of thinking, and we see it everywhere in the world today, especially politics. Look around at what's going on in the world, and it's full of people saying, this is how I believe, and that's the way it is. And they are constantly arguing over who is right, even though everybody's coming from just their perspective, which, in my experience, and I'm not referring to anybody specifically, just generally, that in my experience, a lot of these beliefs are very subjective. But anyway, a lot of these people who are so entrenched in their beliefs tend to believe, of course, that they cannot change, that they are fixed. You might have heard of the concept of growth mindset, growth versus fixed mindset. It's very popular. It has been very popular for the past 10 years in organizations, and it's very much connected to this topic of, can we change? If you have a fixed mindset, if you believe that your personality, you're born with it and you will die with it, then you see the world in a very limited way. At work, you are an employee or a manager or a leader who tends to show very little flexibility in his or her way of doing things. You're not willing to experiment as much. You're not willing to take certain types of risks as much. You tend to be possibly a bit less innovative because, again, you're living in a very fixed, rigid way. On the other hand, if you believe in growth mindset, if you try to embrace it, if you try to work on this, then that means you are developing a certain form of flexibility where your personality, you are not necessarily stuck with your personality for your entire life. Your personality becomes a little bit more malleable, more flexible, more playful, perhaps. So again, That's very much connected to this idea of can we change? Now, I realize that for most of us, we have the impression that we do not change. I am like this. I am more introverted. I am more extroverted. I am more neurotic. I am more this or that. So we do have personality traits. Um, I'm thinking, for example, of Myers-Briggs, where somebody will say, I am an INTJ, and that's how I am. And I see the world through this INTJ lens. Fine, that does clearly influence us. We are born and raised a certain way. Does that mean that we are prisoner of all of this for our entire life? Not necessarily. Some things we will always have with us, and some things we will be able to build some flexibility around that. There's a wonderful metaphor that I got from Buddhist Rinpoche in one of his books. And he says, we are like a river. When you look at a river, it looks very static in the sense that the river was there yesterday, it will be there tomorrow. The water flows in the same direction. Usually, unless there's a disaster, the river will remain the same size approximately. It will remain in this spot. So the river doesn't really change. But if you think of the water that is flowing, is it the same water than yesterday? Would it be the same water tomorrow? And the answer is no. The water is constantly changing. So a river changes and a river doesn't change. And I think human beings are very similar to this. Some parts of us will always be there, but some parts of us will change. As a matter of fact, on a biological level, we are constantly changing anyway, but we are more speaking about habits and patterns of behaviors. And it is not easy to change a behavior. It is not easy to change a habit, but it is possible. Neuroscience, behavior science, ancient wisdom practices, Buddhism, for example. Buddhism is all about mind training. It is all about changing behavior. So we know from science and we know from spirituality, it is possible to change. It is possible by training our mind and by training our nervous system. It's not easy. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a desire, a strong desire to change, a willingness to engage with what's uncomfortable. It requires a willingness to go where it hurts sometimes. But it is possible if we want it. So this is very relevant for stress, as I mentioned at the beginning, because if you're having a burnout, or if you're close to a burnout, or if you're having a life or a work crisis, again, I repeat what I said earlier, removing a couple of external triggers will help you. In some very rare cases, it might even solve the problem for you. But chances are you've been in certain patterns of thinking, of feeling, and of behaviors that have led you to feel the way you feel. And therefore, you cannot expect your situation to change unless you are willing to try to change certain things about yourself. So, to the question, can we change? Yes, we can. We are in control. But it will take a lot of hard work and motivation and dedication and commitment and willingness. But it's worth it. Believe me, it is worth it. So, be willing to change, know that it's possible, and then take the steps that are required so that you can come out of the patterns and ways of thinking that have led you to this situation in the first place. All right. I wish you a great day and talk to you soon. Bye.